Hello, everybody. Welcome to Brandon's Haunted Library. My name is Brandon, your undead librarian, and I read and talk about fantasy, literary fiction, and of course, horror. Thank you for choosing my video. Today, we're diving into the third episode of Silver Scream to Broken Spines, where I pair iconic horror movies with books that I think capture their unique vibe. We'll explore what makes these stories tick, compare the screams on screen to those on the page, and see if my selections live up to the film. If you missed the last episode, be sure to check it out. I covered Ridley Scott's Alien and paired it with a couple great space horror novels. You can find the link to that video in the description below. But today, we're turning our gaze to a different kind of horror, a visceral body horror-laced descent into beauty, obsession, and self-destruction with The Substance. I've chosen 2 books to read for this episode, as well as a few other recommendations from my TBR list, as well as books that I've read. And each of these hopefully deliver the type of body horror that makes The Substance so uniquely horrifying and unsettling. But before we get to the books, let's talk about the movie itself, its themes, its inspirations, its accolade and awards, and why it's destined to stick with audience long after this award season ends. But if you could care less and just want to get to the books, I get it, you're on BookTube. You can jump to this timestamp to skip all the movie talk. But everyone along for the ride, let's jump into the movie. The Substance was written, directed, and produced by the French filmmaker Coralie Fargeau. Her directorial debut, the action thriller Revenge, was released in 2017 to much critical praise. She quickly became a sought-after director and was even considered for the directorial role for Marvel's Black Widow film, but ultimately decided against doing a studio film to instead have creative freedom to start writing the script that would eventually become The Substance. With this new script, she desired to explore more deeply the feminist themes from Revenge and take a close look at society's obsession with beauty and internalized violence caused by societal expectations on women's bodies and aging. She states in interviews that she wanted to create this excessively violent and visually striking statement to show this societal issue unflinchingly and encourage us to change. Coralie Fargeau is a director interested in the visuals of her films and described writing the script like writing a novel, with its extensive stage direction, sensory details and descriptions, and dedicating only 29 pages of the 150-page script to actual dialogue. The script would go on to win Best Screenplay at the Cannes Film Festival, where The Substance premiered, and was nominated for Best Original Screenplay at the Oscars and Golden Globes, which I believe that she was snubbed on. And speaking of Oscar snubs, this film was elevated by its performances, particularly coming from Demi Moore as our lead. During casting, she was not Fargeau's initial choice, but when her name was brought up as an option, she thought she would be a good fit, but felt that Demi Moore would not want to destroy her image in doing this film. But as it turns out, Demi Moore loved the script, being drawn to its feminist subject matter, despite knowing little to nothing about the body horror genre. She knew that the film would either be a game changer or a disaster, and in the end accepted the role, and met with Fargeau several times during pre-production to discuss the extensive prosthetics and practical effects to be used, as well as the level of nudity that Fargeau considered foundational to the story. And in the end, the risk to Moore in taking this role so far out of her comfort zone paid off, as it earned her first ever Oscar nomination and her first ever Golden Globes award win. Later, Fargeau would bring in Margaret Qualley as the co-star, who delivered an incredibly physical performance and donned the costume of the final physical transformation in the film, which took 6 hours of prosthetics to be put on her, and she described the experience of wearing these prosthetics as torturous. The extent of practical effects used in this film is incredible, earning the film an Oscar for Best Makeup. Most of the effects in this film were executed practically, making this a true achievement in filmmaking. The Substance opens on aging film star Elizabeth Sparkle, who was fired as the host of her aerobics TV show on her 50th birthday. She later gets into a car crash, and at the hospital, a young nurse gives her a flash drive, advertising The Substance, a black market drug that promises a younger, beautiful, more perfect version of oneself. Elizabeth, desperate to be beautiful, orders and injects the substance, causing a younger version of herself to be violently birthed from her back. The two bodies must switch consciousness every 7 days without exception, but what happens when the balance is not respected? The younger version of herself, who calls herself Sue, becomes an overnight success as Elizabeth's TV replacement and continuously disrespects the balance, delaying the 7-day transfer of consciousness. In this film, both Elizabeth and Sue learn the horrifying price of the substance. The nightmarish unraveling of identity and autonomy that this film delivers easily makes this one of the greatest body horror movies ever made. To have a film as visceral as this perform as well as it did this award season says volumes about the artistic merit of the film. The Academy Awards, which has historically overlooked horror filmmaking, nominated The Substance in 5 categories, including Best Picture and Best Director. It is a visually striking film, utilizing surreal and often absurd imagery, as well as the intentional use of colors and extreme close-up shots. If you love horror films that are stylish, psychological, and deeply disturbing, The Substance is definitely a must-watch. It tackles themes of aging and the unattainable beauty standards presented in entertainment, themes of the dangers of addiction, as well as themes of patriarchy and the male gaze. And one of the most striking aspects of The Substance is how it weaponizes beauty, turning the horror inward. It is also the seductive nature of control and how the pursuit of perfection can become one's downfall. Which brings me to book recommendations, because it is this premise that I've noticed many critics drawing similarities to the 1890 Gothic classic Oscar Wilde, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Now, to be perfectly clear, this is not a traditional horror novel, and as a result, I am not considering this a top recommendation if you're looking for a book that delivers the same feeling as The Substance did. But this book's exploration of vanity, identity, and moral decay resonates deeply with the themes of The Substance, perhaps even being referenced through the portrait of Elizabeth Sparkle in her apartment. In Wilde's classic, Dorian Gray is a young man who has a self-portrait that absorbs the consequences of his sins and aging, leaving his external appearance untouched and eternally young, while his true self deteriorates and is reflected in this portrait. Much like Elizabeth Sparkle in The Substance, Dorian is seduced by the promise of perfection, but the cost is far greater than he imagines. Both stories explore the horror and tragedy of losing control over one's identity, where The Substance externalizes this battle through body horror and physical transformation. Wilde's novel takes a more psychological approach, showing how unchecked desires and the quest for eternal youth leads to Dorian Gray's downfall. In addition, the lush, gothic prose mirrors the stylized beauty of The Substance, while the novel's underlying dread about the price of perfection offers thematic parallels. This book is an absolute classic that I do definitely recommend you check out, but let's get into some horror novels that I think will fit the grotesque and feminist appeal of The Substance. One book on my TBR that immediately came to mind is Rouge by Mona Awad. Mona Awad is an author I have not read from before, but I am incredibly drawn to her because of how bizarre and polarizing her work is. She is most known for, and perhaps infamous for, her book Bunny, which went viral on Book Talk and continues to confuse and enamor new readers. Her 2023 novel Rouge is one I strongly considered as a companion to The Substance, as I understand it blends horror, satire, and surrealism to create a biting exploration of beauty culture. Rouge follows Belle, a woman obsessed with skincare and perfection, who is drawn into an exclusive and mysterious spa after her mother's death. What begins as a search for answers soon becomes a surreal descent into the world of beauty rituals taken to terrifying extremes. Much like The Substance, Rouge presumably examines how pressures to attain impossible beauty standards can torture us, with both stories highlighting the seductive yet destructive allure of transformation, where becoming perfect comes at a monstrous cost. I understand that Mona Awad indulges in dream sequences, and those might echo some of the surrealist visuals of The Substance. It is a book that promises to portray the horrors of beauty obsession and offer its own social commentary, much like The Substance. However, I did not end up reading this one because I was more confident about the levels of body horror that would deliver in some of the books that I did select. And that is not to say that Rouge does not have body horror. I'm confident that this would be a great book to read if you enjoyed The Substance. Another book that I considered for my TBR is the mystery and horror novel from Japan called Grotesque, which was written by Nasuo Kirino and translated by Rebecca Copeland. From what I know, this book is similar to The Substance in that this unsettling novel goes into the destructive power of beauty, societal expectations, and the way in which women are dehumanized under the weight of patriarchy. This book tells the story of 2 women who are brutally murdered working as prostitutes in Tokyo. The story is told by a sister of one of the victims and unfolds through a combination of the narrator's reflections and journals left behind by the victims, creating a fragmented and intimate portrait of these women's lives. Much like The Substance, Grotesque explores how beauty can be both a blessing and a curse, offering power while simultaneously making women more vulnerable to exploitation. And both works interrogate how society pressures women to pursue impossible standards. Apparently, Carino digs into the psychological toll that pursuing societal and beauty standards takes, showing how internalized misogyny and societal pressures twist identities of her characters into something more monstrous. It is a bit ambiguous as to what this novel is ultimately about, but as I understand, it is not a straightforward murder mystery, but the themes of beauty standards, prostitution, and patriarchy seem to suggest that this will be a provocative and unsettling experience similar to that of The Substance. But in the end, I chose 2 books to read for this video because I predicted they would most closely match the vibe of The Substance. First, I chose Natural Beauty by Ling Huang, because this novel is centered around the beauty industry, blending horror with a sharp critique of consumer culture and the impossible standards imposed on women. The story follows a woman struggling to make ends meet when she takes a job at a high-end beauty and wellness store that promises miraculous transformations. At first, the products seem harmless, but as the narrator becomes more entangled within the company's elite clientele, she begins uncovering disturbing secrets about her employer. I thought that this would be a good fit for this video because, similar to The Substance, Natural Beauty promises to explore the terrifying consequences of chasing perfection and the dehumanizing effects of making beauty an obsession. Judging from some of its reviews, this offers a visceral depiction of the physical and psychological costs of this obsession, which is great because I'm looking for some gross and squelchy body horror. And after Natural Beauty, I will also be reading Youth Juice by E.K. Sathu, which, similar to Natural Beauty, takes on critiques of the beauty industry through a story told from a new hire at a cosmetics company. Youth Juice follows Sophia, who joins the marketing team at the skincare company Hebe. She becomes addicted to one of their prototype products, a moisturizer called Youth Juice, that her boss is having her test out. As she learns about the ingredients of Youth Juice, she has to decide how far she's willing to go to stay beautiful forever. It is described as American Psycho meets The Devil Wears Prada, an outrageous body horror for the Goop generation, which not only sounds like a lot of fun, but also sounds like a great companion to The Substance. In addition, the author has been a freelance beauty writer and editor for about a decade, so I certainly think that she has a unique perspective on such topics that I'm really interested to see what this book is all about. So I'm going to start by reading Natural Beauty by Ling Huang. I'll tell you all about it after I finish. Then I'll dig into Youth Juice by E.K. Sathu to close out the video. I just finished reading Natural Beauty a few days ago, and I gotta say, I really enjoyed the reading experience, and I think that it would be an excellent book to read if you love the movie The Substance. The novel follows an unnamed narrator, a gifted pianist whose promising career is derailed by a family tragedy. Forced to abandon her dreams in music, she takes a job at an elite wellness and beauty company called Holistic. At first, the glamorous world of Holistic seems to be a dream, offering cutting-edge treatments that promise to enhance the human body, with access to treatments given to our narrator as an employee. But as the narrator becomes more deeply involved in the company's culture, she begins to uncover disturbing truths about Holistic. Like The Substance, Natural Beauty leans heavily into body horror, and while not as shocking as the film, Huang uses body horror in powerful ways to critique beauty culture in ways similar to The Substance. The novel's grotesque transformations mirror those that we witness in The Substance, with both works exploring how the pursuit of beauty can quite literally turn us into monsters. Scientific pursuits of Holistic mirror the mysterious organization behind The Substance, both offering exclusive experimental treatments that promise miracles, hiding devastating side effects. In Natural Beauty, many of these treatments become addictive, invasive, and painful, similar to the film. And thematically, both works arrive at a similar conclusion. After the dust settles, they both suggest that freedom and liberation can be found by rejecting beauty standards and beauty culture. The ending of Natural Beauty is particularly reminiscent of the final transformation in The Substance, delivering a haunting conclusion that lingers long after you finish. And something reminiscent of the final transformation in The Substance is what I was really hoping to find in one of these book selections, so I'm glad that we found this here. I also found the satirical tone of Natural Beauty to be reminiscent of The Substance, both works employing humor and whimsy in really delightful ways. Huang's novel critiques the darker side of wellness culture, the obsession with optimizing and hacking the human body, much like how The Substance looks to the entertainment industry's relentless pressure to maintain youth and beauty. It also offers insightful commentary on the intersection of beauty, race, and class, showcasing how these forces impact each other. What really stood out to me was how strange and creative this book gets. While the climax is certainly its most shocking, there are plenty of unsettling WTF moments throughout. This was just a really fun book to read. The prose itself is hauntingly beautiful with a lyrical quality that contrasts sharply with the novel's more grotesque elements. It is a both fun read and a thought-provoking exploration of our culture's obsession with beauty. If you found yourself captivated and horrified by The Substance, I definitely recommend you check out Natural Beauty by Ling Huang. I'm currently making my way through Youth Juice by E.K. Sathu, and once I finish, I will share with you my thoughts. Alright everybody, I just finished Youth Juice by E.K. Sathu, and while it complements The Substance in compelling ways, I ultimately found it to be a less impactful exploration of similar themes, especially after reading Natural Beauty. This is a satirical book about a woman named Sophia who lands a marketing role in New York City at a luxury skincare company called Hebe. Here she becomes addicted to the Hebe lifestyle and their anti-aging product called Youth Juice. But as she learns about the ingredients of youth juice, she has to decide how far she's willing to go to stay beautiful forever. Like The Substance, the youth juice critiques the cultural obsession with staying young through experimental treatments. The titular product serves the same narrative purpose as The Substance, a mysterious, highly sought-after solution that promises transformation while hiding terrifying consequences. Both works also explore how the pursuit of beauty can become addictive, with Sathu leaning into the lure of such products and the inevitable horror that follows. One thing Youth Juice does particularly well is exposing the predatory nature of the beauty industry. The ways Hebe markets its products feel eerily realistic, reflecting how real-life beauty brands exploit insecurities and desires. And the critique is delivered with a satirical edge that adds humor to the story, much like The Substance. However, while the novel uses body horror effectively, especially in its striking and grotesque final chapters, it doesn't push the elements as far as either The Substance or Natural Beauty, but that is a pretty high bar, particularly with The Substance. The horror is present but feels more restrained, which might make it more accessible but less impactful overall. One area where the novel fell short for me was its protagonist. Sophia's motivations and personalities felt underdeveloped, making it difficult to empathize with her and her journey. Additionally, the dual timeline narrative, flashing between her current life at Hebe and key moments from her past, disrupted the pacing for me, and the connections between these timelines, while thematically relevant to a degree, didn't always feel the most cohesive. Despite these drawbacks, Youth Juice is still an entertaining and at times thought-provoking read. It leans into the absurdity of beauty culture with a tone that, as it is marketed, blends The Devil's Wear Prada with American Psycho. It delivers sharp social commentary with a touch of dark humor. While it didn't quite live up to my expectations, I'd still recommend it to fans of The Substance who are looking for a similarly twisted body horror take on these themes. I think I would just be more quick to recommend Natural Beauty first, because I really enjoyed that one. But that's all I've got for this video. And if you read either of these books or any of the other ones I considered, I'd love to hear what you thought about them. Or if you have any recommendations for me, I'd love to hear them because I've been obsessed with The Substance. Thank you for watching episode 3 of Silver Scream: Two Broken Spines. Remember, check out my first 2 episodes covering Scream and Alien if you haven't seen them yet. If you did enjoy this, don't forget to like and subscribe, and share with your fellow horror fans who might appreciate these recommendations. Here is a sneak peek for next episode.
There you are. Boo! Sam? Samuel!
I'll catch you next time. Happy reading, everybody.